Since I was a kid, I've always been in awe of one particular house that sits directly across from my favorite bench on the Riverwalk, where you can often find me sitting with a coffee from bailiwicks and reading some old book. I've often joked that if I ever won the lottery, this was the house I was going to buy. Little did I know that my enchantment by this house would have a story behind it that would rival any other local tale I've ever heard. And from one 3-paragraph vague note found in the Historical Society's vault, I would set out on a month-long quest to find out every detail I could about it, and the woman it was built for. Back when the world was seeing the transition from the Georgian era to the often romanticized Victorian era, an untold story would unfold that, as of this very video you're watching now, will go down as one of the greatest real-world fairy tales in local history. The transitioning eras brought significant social changes, including the rise of the middle class and new ideology of separate spheres for men and women. It also saw major social reforms related to child labor, public health and education, alongside political reforms that expanded suffrage. Cultural changes included increased literacy, the growth of a consumer society, and a focus on strict morality and family values. It was within this time of major advancements, industrialization, and social change that an impressive man by the name of George Seney would do something that would set the stage for our story over 118 years after it happened. Born in Uniontown, Pennsylvania, George was the grandson of Joshua Seney, and was also descended from the colonial governor of Maryland, Francis Nicholson. George moved to Tiffin, Ohio with his parents in 1832, just 3 decades before my own family would arrive in 1864. He attended Norwalk Seminary, studied law, and was admitted to the bar in 1853, commencing practice in Tiffin. George declined appointment as United States Attorney for the Northern District of Ohio tendered by President James Buchanan. He became a judge of the Court of Common Pleas in 1857, and during the Civil War enlisted in the 101st Ohio Infantry in 1862, where he was promoted to first lieutenant, and later acted as quartermaster of the regiment until the close of the war. As a Democrat, he served in the United States House of Representatives from 1883 to 1891. Judge Seney was one of Tiffin's most distinguished citizens and was married to Isabella Singer. The couple were within the social sphere of the area's elite upper class, with well-defined accomplishments, wealth, and of good family name. At some random social gathering, George met with Joseph Walker and his wife Rebecca Hedges, who was the daughter of Josiah Hedges, the very man who founded the city, and their daughter Anna Walker. From the moment George first laid eyes on Anna, their fate was sealed. The two of them instantly fell in love. The problem was that George was still married to Isabella, and during this time period the very notion of an affair was enough to cause damning scandal among elite society who were newly refocused on the importance of family values and a good Christian character. In an attempt to hide their affection for each other, George and Anna plotted a trip to Toledo, Ohio, where they stayed in a hotel for a weekend, with George claiming that it was a business trip, and Anna making the claim that she was off to visit friends. The story didn't hold up with the all-too-nosy and inquisitive locals, and the scandalous weekend broke out across the city like a plague. Friends and family alike did not react well to George having an affair with Anna, even though Anna was at the time a beloved member of society, the church, and the granddaughter of the founder of the city himself. All of the blame for this scandal fell on her, and she was accused of destroying George and Isabella's marriage. Isabella requested a divorce the moment the story got out. While George had ruined his marriage and was going through the divorce, Anna herself was completely ostracized by the community. Anna was no longer invited or welcome at private or public functions. was banned from the church she had dedicated her life to, and was no longer in the good graces of upper-class society. The locals would come to completely ignore Anna and disregard her very existence to the point that it was as if she was a ghost. They wouldn't even look at her on the street. The stores would not ring up any purchases she wanted to make, and in short, Anna's life became a living hell, as everything she had ever known and worked for was stripped away, and not even her family name could grant her comfort. George did not react well to the community ostracizing Anna for loving him. He would come to marry Anna and take her away from the city to Washington, D.C. in 1883, where they lived during George's years serving in Congress. This was the height of the Victorian era. Jack the Ripper was making all the headlines in the newspapers across the world. Fashions were fluid, international trade was booming, and times were both difficult and promising while changing almost daily. After his term in Congress ended, George and Anna would move back to Tiffin, holding on to the hope that their years away from the city would dull the community's memory of how their marriage began. But small towns have long memories, and society did not welcome them back kindly with their judgment or holier-than-thou are principles. This enraged George. In this rage against the judgmental nature of the locals, George purchased a plot of land at 14 Clay Street on the west side of the river in Frost Village. In 1896, he began construction on a Queen Anne-style home for Anna that within less than a year of construction would become a fairy tale level castle. He had the home built for her using the finest, most expensive woods available at the time. Gold-plated bathroom fixtures and large Tiffany stained glass windows. The entire third floor of the house is laid out in a grand ballroom, and the surrounding lawn was a walk-in flower garden peppered with rare trees, shrubs, and rose bushes. Built on a slight rise above the river itself, with its arched bridge into downtown just across the street, sitting on the raised wraparound porch of this house feels as if you're looking down on the entire downtown area, with the iconic clock tower at the center of the panoramic view. George had hopes that the house would bring Anna back into favor with the area elites who would long to see the interior of Anna's new grand home. George would go on to gift Anna diamonds, jewels, and the finest fashions of the time, some all the way from Paris that were delivered on the train from shops in New York. But even though Anna was living out this fairy tale love story at home, none of it worked to get her back in favor, and she never received visitors or guests. Yet, through it all, George and Anna's love never faltered, and they would spend the rest of their lives together in defiance of the price they had to pay for it. Anna's one and only relief of being ostracized was her acceptance into a new church, which was the only social interaction she had. The two never had any children to pass their love-laced legacy down to. George continued to practice law in Tiffin until his death on June 11, 1905. After George died, all Anna had left was the house. So she sold the home, which on today's market is valued at just over $500,000, and moved across the bridge to the Shawhan Hotel, a high-end hotel at the time with an opulent emerald room that was the envy of the city. The hotel boasted classic and timeless decor adorned with parlors and libraries, and was a proper place for Anna to live out the final years of her life in peace and solitude. In 1908, Della Laird bought Anna's old home and gave it to her sister, Mrs. John Howe, a Tiffin physician, and they lived there until the 1930s. Anna remained at the hotel, well removed from society until her death in 1909, when her and George would be reunited again forever in the sun-dappled hills of Greenlawn Cemetery in a family plot fitting for their story. It wasn't until after Anna's death in 1909 that the residents of the city would relinquish their curse upon Anna and George, and would come to name the current Walker Street after Anna. And if you walk down Walker Street towards the east, you will soon come beneath the shade of an old maple tree that canopies the intersection of Walker and Ann Streets. I visited this very intersection, and from that very maple tree recovered a handful of newly fallen seeds from the heart of the crossroads. My goal is to grow the seeds in pots for a couple of years before planting them in my family garden with brass plaques that read Anna Walker Maple. Today, Tiffin remains as a slow-life living riverside hamlet with a Victorian era aesthetic that the city has invested tens of millions of dollars to restore and maintain. Much of the city's upper class still reside on the west bank of the river in Frost Village that can trace its history all the way back to Fort Ball when the city itself was still on the east bank. But the old prejudices of the bygone eras ruled by social elites and Christian fundamentalists are gone. Those who might be considered the city's elites today are all welcoming, encouraging, and kind. Men and women who do not judge individuals based on their past, but solely on their current contributions to the success and welfare of the place we all call home. The city is abuzz both day and night, remaining as the crossroads of major state routes and two massive college campuses, including Heidelberg and Tiffin University. This will forever be a college town with areas of big city energy and small town humbleness, with second chances at life being a common business model. It doesn't matter what you've done, only what you're going to do next. This is a place far removed from any other. A place where stories like Anna Walker's have been unfolding for centuries. It's a place of reflection, learning, growing, and remembering, or forgetting. I'll never be able to look at that same mesmerizing house that I've been in awe of since my childhood the same way again. Nor will I ever feel as if I'm sitting alone in its shadow, sipping my coffee and reading my old books. I can relate to Anna. I've been judged harshly for things long since past. I know how it feels to be ripped out of a community I've dedicated myself to. I've experienced the same kind of unbreakable fairy tale love in my own life. A love that lingers in the ether of this very city even today, and brings with it both unimaginable blessings and destructive dangers if not contained. While I might spend a good deal of time mingling with the ghosts of my city, I know and have become acutely aware that I'm no longer walking down these storied streets alone. They're all still here, walking alongside me, guiding me, telling me their stories. We struck a bargain, the ghosts and I. In telling their tales to a new world, I gift them with immortality and a rare chance for their stories to live on. In return for the telling their stories, I am granted new fragments of my own, infused with the blessings of all those who came before me. The pages continue to turn for all of us. And one by one my leaves fall. One by one, my tales are told.
What do you want from me? Why don't you run from me? What are you wondering? What do you